Thank you, Rajiv, and I would also like to then officially welcome Dr. Vandana Kumar, the Joint Secretary of the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. Sorry, there was some hiccups and some last-minute arrangements, so you came in a little bit late, and we started with the conversation. So, if I may take just 2 or 3 minutes to give you an impression of what was done. So I started off, and I basically also contextualized this in this conversation in the context of what we have jointly signed off just last week, this Facility for International Cooperation on Inclusive and Sustainable Industrial Development, and taking the UNIDO view that the circular economy should be an industrial economy where we have industrial process to bring products and parts and materials back into multiple uses, preferably perpetual, and then remanufacturing being one of those. And I highlighted a bit of the sense of what Rajiv was also saying, that this remanufacturing is probably operating a little bit in what I would call the limelight, so it's not that visible always to the consumer. So it might, which is good because it's happening and we don't even notice, but it's also a little bit unfortunate because there's a lack of learning from it. But there's also certainly the point of the kind of a little bit of a negative legacy that remanufactured has not always been up to the quality expectations. Then Michael Bucki from the Development Corporation from the EU was on the spoke a little bit and was also highlighting on the European Union's initiatives on circular economy and resource efficiency, and also saying that also in his perspective there's some examples which are good in some sectors, but in other sectors we don't see this, and we really need to look more comprehensive at where's the appropriate niche sectors for this remanufacturing. And then Nandini Kumar from the Center of Excellence for Sustainable Development, CII, she also came in, and she reflected, if I may paraphrase her a little bit, that industries are looking for a bit of a pull factor. So they see an opportunity. In principle, there is materials that could be utilized, but unless there is a specific carrot more than a stick, then it would be only a few that would take forward. Then we had a very interesting contribution from Tata Motors Pro-Life, and very interesting that, of course, reflecting on the Tata business philosophy, they have actually been in the remanufacturing of vehicle engines for more than 2 decades, and done a lot of them. As the number that floated around was about 3,500 engines a month being remanufactured. So that's quite good, and seeing much more opportunity. Also seeing that some engine designs have changed to adapt to become more modular and more remanufacturable. I think what I found personally interesting is that the comment that they're making, that they see the competition more coming out of a cheap repair, which is not to quality, rather than in a bigger level. I saw on the comments, the chat box, actually some other people from Tata also coming in who said that Tata was also doing the remanufacturing of the machine tools and the equipment. So I wanted to just mention that Mr. Chandrasekhar was commenting that. But that also leads to Mr. Sushil Kumar from the Ludhiana Machine Tools Industries Association. And he was elaborating a bit on that, certainly there's a practice among the MSME units also to bring in forming equipment or sheet metal equipment and remanufacture this and sell this into the market, which is quite an established industry. But he was particularly concerned about the skills levels that are needed. So, and this is maybe not exclusively for remanufacturing, but also for the manufacturing. So we need good technicians. Then where do we get those from? Then Swapan Mehra from Invest India, which is co-hosting this event, spoke a little bit about the initiative of Invest India to establish this Wealth from Waste program. And even though that is not exclusively focused on remanufacturing, it's looking at trying to connect a little bit of science and technology that is needed. We need new technologies to close material cycles, and that is a little bit where the link is. I think Rajiv was reflecting just now on some of the other sectors which are there. So that is a little bit of I think there is general excitement around the concept, but a little bit of intangibility to actually make it happen. So I spoke too much, as I sometimes have a habit, but can I ask you, Dr. Kumar, to share the perspectives of DPIIT? Floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank Thanks, René, for that summing up of the deliberations. It was very useful. I wish I could have joined a little sooner than I did, but I'm glad that I am eventually joining. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Well, it's a great day. It's great to be part of this event. I didn't even know that we were actually celebrating a remanufacturing day. So that's good for a start, certainly. But then that's only a start. And despite the lot of invisible kind of work which is happening, there is a lot that definitely needs to be done. First of all, my own sense regarding India is that we culturally, as a nation, as a civilization, have been a frugal civilization. For time immemorials, we would buy something and we would use it till the very end. And whether it's in terms of clothing or even the saris that we wear, it's in our culture. It's in some sense, it's in our DNA to pass it on even through the generations. So we're frugal, and in some sense, circularity was very much there. And it's only in the last several decades where, in our bid to promote growth, India is definitely one of the fastest growing economies in the world, that this linear economic development concept has really caught on. But of course, it has its own trade-offs. It has its own impacts, which we very well understand. And it is as our very conscious effort to promote sustainable and inclusive development that that we have been working through this facility, which we call Facility for International Cooperation on Inclusive and Sustainable Development. So it's a very important theme for us. You know that as a commitment to SDG 9, we have been working on some of these concepts, and we are trying very hard that they must gain ground. But I completely agree with some of the observations that Rajiv was making and you made, that it cannot be a piecemeal approach. We need to bring in design elements, material aspects, technology, and policy work has to go hand in hand. For it to become our DNA, circularity to become our DNA, we have to make very conscious policy interventions towards it. And that is something that I would like to see some deeper conversations. As I said, this is only the beginning. Let's work offline towards discussing these concepts as to what are the interventions needed and how we can build them. Rajiv was mentioning sustainable public procurement. So what are the policy tweaks needed? Let's talk of those in greater detail as we go along. Automotive industry has always been a front runner with several things. But as we were talking, René, a couple of days ago, what constitutes remanufacturing and what doesn't really needs some clarity as well. Whether repair and refurbishment also qualify for that. Does a true value car also qualify for remanufacturing? I'm still not sure. So we need greater clarity and greater understanding when we are trying to address, or this is an all-encompassing kind of a term, and we use it in a very broad sense. That's something that I would want to understand and would want to work on, definitely. Undoubtedly, the industry itself has immense potential, be it in job creation. Remanufacturing creates, I'm told, research does show that it creates 8 to 20 jobs per 1,000 tons of unwanted products, as against 5 to 10 jobs or 0.1 jobs for the wasted products which are sent to the landfill. So undoubtedly, apart from several benefits in terms of saving of energy and material use. There's several benefits that go with remanufacturing and the circular economy concept. Definitely, we need to work on it. Let's talk about these in greater detail. COVID certainly calls for a lot of reset. It has already underscored the various inequities which exist in economies and countries around the world, and we need to build resilient futures, equitable futures for everyone around the world. So these are certainly the concepts that we need to work on. I'm glad that this conversation has begun. My compliments to you, René, and Recreate and Invest India and all other partners who've joined in this conversation. But as I said, let's carry forward this conversation. Let's dive deeper into it and come up with frameworks and policy interventions which will help us take these concepts forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar, and I very much take up the bet, so to speak, and say that we need some more in-depth soul searching on what could be now the policy options on taking this forward, and what could be maybe some pilot initiatives which could have a lever for remanufacturing. I'm also very much with you that on the issue of remanufacturing, we could probably write each of us a second PhD on the concepts which are linked to that and how it differs from other things. But we also need a sense of reality that this does not make necessary sense. We need to close material cycles, and we need all possible solutions to get this done. And remanufacturing traditionally has been more at the level of parts rather at the level of maintaining the same shape. So you use it as it is, whereas the recycling and refurbishment has been otherwise there. But there's also this concept of recycling and upcycling, so even going better. And we were discussing also the example of the PET bottles, which now we have a large upcycling cluster in Tirupur that has used PET bottles to manufacture essentially sports goods or sports clothing and so on. So we need a comprehensive approach to that. And you also very much highlighted then the issue that we should not do this just for an environmental feel good, but there's also jobs for which we urgently need for people in India, and it's also the economic opportunities that are there, taking it forward from the what you refer to as a frugal society, that it's very much in the DNA of Indian society to use and reuse and recycle. And I if I may say so, as an outsider, I believe this was also the case in Europe and elsewhere. Maybe the transition, the history is a bit longer, but if you go 50 years more back, then it was certainly also there. So thank you very much for that conversation.